Scott McLean started to referee volleyball as a university student. Those who know how confident and competent he is might be amazed that as a young ref, Scott was worried he might not be taken seriously. The volleyball world quickly learned Scott knew the rules well, and he had a knack for how to manage a game.
What was important is I knew what was a fault or not, and then it was just getting the confidence to be able to blow that whistle, and hopefully then the teams being able to look at accepting that. I really wanted to look at, I'm going to use the word kind of taking control of the match and not accepting kind of bad behavior on the court. So I was able to facilitate a match and still be able to maintain that authority.
To regurgitate the rules is just reading the book, but to apply them and apply them in the spirit of the game, that's where Scott has an extra piece, for sure.
You know, he had a real interest in just making the match run well. And I think definitely he was in control.
A volleyball referee needs confidence. And Scott's a little smaller in stature, so he needed an extra dose of that confidence, and he had it, there's no question. And to be able to teach that is very difficult. Scott's probably the only guy that can teach that piece really, really well.
Scott rocketed up the ranks, achieving certification to referee at the collegiate and eventually at the national and international levels.
When I became national team coach, I was very young still. But you travel with the international referee. And I think it was really in those times, foreign country, that Scott really helped me. But understand that, the game within the game of international refereeing and international volleyball.
Scott was able to see the world over the years, but with a young family at home, this level of dedication had a price.
What I enjoyed about getting assignments through FIVB, it was a little bit like Mission Impossible. I would get an email and it would say that you have an assignment. And all of a sudden I'm off to Russia, or I'm off to Brazil, and what the event is. So it was very exciting to get that email. The challenge of getting that email was then how am I going to explain that and have that discussion with Brenda, my late wife. So I have a lot of gratitude and appreciate her level of support as a spouse, but being able to look at doing my passion.
Outside of volleyball, Scott McLean earned a PhD in psychology. For decades, he taught in the criminal justice program at Mount Royal University. A critical aspect of his success at refereeing can be attributed to applying his understanding of the human mind to the game of volleyball.
Talking to parents, talking to coaches, just saying, hey, how's your day? Because then if I get called to the court and they're not very happy, they'll go, oh, I remember meeting you. And that was, I learned that very much from Scott, to open the door for dialogue before there's an issue. Because if they're already your friends, it's a little harder to be mad at your friends, or at least there's an understanding.
I think that's one of the things that makes Scott kind of special, because I always felt that he was interested in getting to know the coaches a little bit. So even just 5-10 minutes before the start of the match, this is a referee that you can interact with, both on a professional level and a personal level.
We could talk before the match a little bit about maybe something that's happening technically in the match, but just really about life. How's your family doing? How are things going? How your team is going? So they got to know me as Scott or Scotty. Or if I was on the stand as an R1 and a player came to approach me, Scott, what are you doing? Then I could have a conversation with them, but it was, yes, I was a referee and they were a player, and they didn't like the call. And it was in that where I felt there was a respect back and forth between us as a referee and the players in that.
If something happens, a play happens, you walk up to him and you ask a question, and he says, here's what I saw and here's my interpretation of it. And was certainly open to saying, do you think I got it wrong? And I think that makes it a really, really good official in my opinion. I think sometimes referees have a need to be right, and Scott just didn't present himself that way, in my opinion. You know, it was more important to get the right call, and he was open to a process of searching for that.
Being able to understand what they needed from me at that moment of time, to be able to communicate that, not just to that particular captain, but to the players, the coach, and the other team, was a very important tool in my development as a referee, an important aspect as an international referee.
Despite a busy schedule, Scott was always giving back. For years, he served in mentorship and administrative roles with both Volleyball Alberta and Volleyball Canada. He also stayed in touch with grassroots volleyball through mentoring young referees or even as a referee.
I recall coming back from Russia at an FIVB event, and then the next day my daughter was playing at the junior high school level, and then I was refereeing at that. And I always say to referees that it doesn't matter the level that you are refereeing, because it could be their Olympic Games. I do recall that match where, again, refereeing men at the highest level in the world, and then I'd blow my whistle for serve, and it would be, oh, serve the ball already. Anyhow, it was awesome.
In my opinion, I think he's the best referee I've ever been around, because you can have a conversation with him.
If I can't quite figure out how to fix this referee, Scott could. And I mean, U Sport coaches highly respected him. Young referees were in awe of him, and he would always take the time to talk to them. He still does. He still does. He still works with our young referees.
I think a good Hall of Famer is someone that's achieved, to the top level in their chosen area, and he's definitely done that. But I think we want to reward good people, and our sport is filled with them, and Scott's at the top of the list.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Volleyball Alberta Hall of Fame 2025 inductee, Scott McLean.